Have you noticed the door in front of you beginning to give, just slightly, under the weight of your own hand? Not the door marked achievement. Not the door everyone else around you seems to be walking through already. Not the one you have been trying to force with a stronger prayer or a longer list of reasons I should finally let you in. I am asking you for a minute alone, right now, before you reach for that handle again. Before this message is over, I want to show you why the quiet on the other side felt like rejection instead of what it actually was. My word already settled it before either of us said a word today. There is an entrance set in front of you that no one, not the wear of a hard week, not the guilt of how long you stayed away, is able to shut. Stay a moment. There is no rush inside this room. Stop here for a second. Just here. No performance, no apology, no rehearsed line. Only you, the door, and me, already leaning from the other side. This is not only about a door with hinges, it is about every kind of barrier you have quietly assumed stands between us. A gate you think requires the right password, a window you assume stays shuttered unless you have earned the light, a lock you imagine only the deserving get to turn. None of that language was ever really about hardware. It was about you deciding, long before you ever met me, that closeness has to be earned in advance. I see the hand you keep resting on that handle without turning it. Not because you do not want in. Some part of you decided long ago that the room behind it is reserved for people carrying bigger requests than yours. You have knocked with an offering in your arms. A problem heavy enough to justify the visit, evidence that this trip was worth my time. Nothing answered fast enough. So you assumed the entrance had been bolted shut from my side. The one who prays between two meetings and closes the app before the sentence finishes loading. I already heard the whole thing, even the part you deleted before sending. A man locking the shop for the night talks to me the way he talks to a landlord. Quick, formal, finish the moment the rent is paid. None of this is hidden from me. Why does an entrance you and I built together end up feeling like it belongs to somebody else? Look closer at the entrance itself. Every doorway has a strip of wood or stone underfoot, worn smooth by feet that crossed it 1,000 times before yours ever did. That worn place remembers. It holds the shape of everyone who paused there, uncertain, before finally stepping through. Yours is no different. Every hesitation you have ever had standing in front of mine has been noticed. Not judged. Noticed. You do not need to overhaul your whole life before you qualify for this kind of visit. You do not need the guilt resolved, the habit broken, the schedule fixed, or the family healed before you are welcome here. Bring the version of yourself that exists right now, unfinished, a little tired. That is the only version I have ever been asking for. I was never interested in meeting the edited one. A notification buzzes in the middle of a prayer and gets answered before the sentence to me is even finished. A calendar fills every gap that quiet might have used. None of this makes you unusual. It makes you someone living in a world built to interrupt exactly the kind of stillness I keep asking you for. I'm not competing with your phone for a place in line. I am asking you to notice how rarely anything gets your full attention anymore, mine included, and to give it to me on purpose. At least once, right here. I have been standing at the entrance of my own house more often than you think, waiting on the handle to turn from your side instead of mine. Not because I am locked out. I made this a place you get to choose to enter, not a place I drag you into. The ache is not new to me. Longer than you have wanted a minute with me, I have wanted one with you. That is a strange thing for a father to say out loud, but I said it anyway. Long before today, someone handed you a picture of authority behind a closed office door. Busy, important, reachable only through an assistant, available for the emergency, never the ordinary afternoon. That picture got quietly stitched onto me. So when the answer did not arrive on your schedule, you filed it under too busy. It was never too busy. It was waiting on you to come in and stay, rather than knock once and run. Here is something small before we go further. Let your shoulders fall the smallest fraction. Not the performance of relaxing you might do for a room full of people. Only enough that I can tell you meant it. That is enough for now. Nothing else is required. Not a posture, not a formula, not the right words. Just this small, unclenched moment. You do not have to arrive composed. You do not have to explain why it has been so long since you last sat down in here without an agenda in your hand. The mother rushing from the school gate to the stove to the phone call she has been dreading has learned to pray the way she folds laundry. Fast, in the gaps, standing up. The father working a second shift talks to me on the drive home in short bursts between traffic lights, then apologizes for how little he brought. I did not leave. I moved a chair closer to the door and I have been sitting in it. Some of you already know the room I mean. The one with a door that actually closes, where you have knelt beside a bed more nights than you can count, saying words nobody else ever heard. That room was never wasted time. Every syllable that left your mouth in there reached me before the sound even finished forming in the air. A student stares at a rejection letter and decides a door to a better life just closed for good. It did not. Doors close. Doorways do not disappear. Hinges do not forget how to move, even the ones you have given up on. A teenager sits on the edge of her bed at the end of a hard day, phone face down, unsure whether it counts as prayer if she does not have the right words for it. It counts. A man in a hospital waiting room stares at a closed set of double doors, certain that whatever happens on the other side is out of anyone's hands, including mine. It is not. None of them needed a password. None of them needed a better excuse. The door was never the obstacle. The hesitation was. Here is a question worth sitting with. What have you been doing instead of walking in? Rehearsing an explanation, preparing an apology for time you did not spend here, building a case for why you have been distant, as if distance were the real problem, instead of the fear that kept you at arm's length. None of that homework was ever required. Not one page of it. You have learned to give me the leftover minutes, the ones between tasks, the ones spent falling asleep, the ones squeezed in at a red light. I am not asking for those. I am asking for a whole minute, undivided, the kind you would give someone who had come a long way just to sit across from you. Put the leftover minutes down for once. Give me one that is not split in half. Here is where the misunderstanding breaks. You have been treating this like an appointment you might not qualify for. It was never that. It was an invitation from someone who already knows every reason you might give for staying outside. And it wants you in anyway. Nothing about your worth has been under review. Nothing has been tested here at all. Something has simply been waiting. You know the sound of a house that has one important resident and a line of people outside hoping to be seen. A receptionist, a schedule, a door that opens for the urgent case, shut for the ordinary one. That picture is common enough that it slipped quietly into how you imagine me, and it does not belong there. It was borrowed from people who were themselves too tired, too wounded, or too proud to give anyone a private minute. And somewhere along the years, it got labeled with my name instead of theirs. I do not run a waiting room. I do not sit behind a desk deciding who has earned the next 15 minutes. The real shape of things is closer to the opposite. I am the one standing at the doorway with my hand already resting on the wood, asking to be led into whatever room you are actually in. The kitchen, with the dishes still in the sink. The car in the driveway where you have been sitting for 10 extra minutes. The office where you closed the laptop but have not gotten up yet. I am not waiting for the version of you that has it together. I am asking for the one who is actually there. Picture two different people standing at the same house. One is a guest, buzzed in, checked, approved, given a time slot on somebody's calendar. The other is family, holding a key they forgot they were carrying, free to walk in without an appointment, because the house has always been theirs too. You have been living like the first one. You were made to be the second. Nobody is buzzing you in. Nobody ever was. Think about what a door really is. It is not a wall. A wall says stop. A door says maybe. It says come in if you choose to. It says this was built so two sides could meet, not so they could be kept apart. Every closed one you have stood in front of was built with hinges, not just a frame. Built to move. Built to open. Built to let something through. What you kept describing to yourself as permanent was only ever a hinge waiting for pressure. You have not been locked out of anything. You have been standing very close to something open the whole time, checking the wrong feature of it. You kept checking whether it looked shut. I kept waiting for you to try the handle without an offering in your other hand. There is an old promise, given long before either of us was born, that says whoever asks receives, whoever seeks finds, and whoever knocks will find it opened. Notice what it does not say. It does not say whoever knocks the loudest. It does not say whoever waits the longest without flinching. It does not say whoever brings the most convincing case. It says knock, and it opens. That is not a description of a difficult negotiation. That is a description of an entrance already leaning toward you before your knuckles ever touch the wood. If the ache behind that closed door has a name, let it be one word right here, before you keep reading. Near. Just that. Not a whole explanation. Not a case built for why you deserve an answer. One word, if that is where you are. Some of you have been guarding a doorway your whole life the way a soldier guards a border, always alert, never resting, treating every silence as an early warning that something is about to be taken from you. That is exhausting work, and it was never work I asked you to do. I did not hand you a post to defend. I handed you a home to live inside. Some of you have made peace with a smaller version of belonging. You visit. You do not stay. You show up for the crisis and slip out again before the ordinary conversation can start, because the ordinary conversation feels like it might cost you something you cannot spare. Time. Honesty. The version of yourself you keep polished for everyone watching. Here, none of that is required. Here, the polished version is not the one I am asking for. A much older story sits underneath this one. A house with two sons. One who stayed and grew resentful, certain his obedience had earned him nothing extra. And one who left, spent everything, and came home rehearsing an apology, ready to be handed a servant's room. The father did not wait for the apology to finish. He ran to the gate, put a ring back on the returning son's hand, and pointed him toward the table, not the porch. He did not require proof of sincerity at the threshold. That story was never really about two brothers. It was about how easily a child forgets they were never a guest to begin with. An orphan calculates. A son simply comes. An orphan counts exactly how much time has passed since the last favor was granted, wondering if there is a limit somewhere in the ledger. A son forgets to count because the relationship was never a ledger to begin with. You have been living like the one keeping score. I have never once been keeping score with you. You may have spent years imagining that my silence was a form of discipline, a closed door meant to teach you to try harder before I would let you through. It was never that kind of lesson. A father does not lock the door to build character in a child he has already claimed. He leaves the door standing open and waits by it, because waiting is not the same thing as withholding. I want to take you somewhere further back, to a hillside country full of small stone sheepfolds, low circular walls built by hand, a single narrow gap left open for the sheep to pass through at night. Most of these folds had no wooden gate hung on hinges. The shepherd himself would lie down across that gap once the flock was inside, his own body becoming the only way in or out. A thief could climb the wall from another side in the dark. No one could pass through the entrance itself without stepping over the shepherd first. I did not write this image for scholars sitting in a study somewhere. I wrote it for the one lying awake in the dark, wondering who is actually guarding the gap in the wall around their life. Sheep are not dramatic animals. They do not test a wall for fun. They rest only where they feel safe, and nowhere else. A flock lying down quietly at night was never decoration. It was evidence. It meant the gap was covered. It meant the shepherd was in place. It meant nothing needed defending by the sheep themselves. That is what safety was supposed to feel like the whole time. Not vigilance. Rest. I was the one who spoke about that gap, in words simple enough for a shepherd to carry home and repeat to his children. I want you to hear it exactly as it was first said, not paraphrased, not softened for easier listening, not shortened to fit a slogan. I told you something like this before, in different words, to a small group of believers who had grown comfortable and a little cold. I stand at the door and knock. Whoever opens, I will come in and eat with them, and they with me. That was never a picture of a landlord inspecting a property he already owns. That was a picture of someone hoping to share an ordinary meal with people who had almost forgotten how close I already was. That was one direction of the same nearness, me asking to be let into your room. Now hear the other direction of it, the one that changes everything about how you come to me. This is what I said. John chapter 10, verse 9. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will go in and out and find pasture. Read that slowly, because it answers more than it first appears to. Notice the shape of the sentence. It does not say I stand near the entrance. It does not say I hold the key to it. It does not say I unlock it once and step aside. It says I am the door. The way in was never a system, a formula, or a set of steps you had to perform correctly. The way in is a person, and that person already made himself the very door you were afraid did not exist. Sit with the middle of the verse for a moment. He will be saved. In the mouth of a shepherd, that word was never abstract. It was not a theory to be argued over in a lecture hall. Being saved meant one thing to a sheep: being inside the fold when night came down, with the wall on every side and the shepherd's own body across the opening. Not stronger than the danger, not smarter than what prowled outside, not better behaved than the sheep lying next to it, simply inside. That is what the verse is offering you. Not a certificate you have to earn, not a standard you keep reaching for and falling short of. A position. Inside, where the one guarding the opening has already made your safety his responsibility instead of yours. Notice the second half just as carefully. It does not say enters once and is finished. It says we'll go in and out and find pasture. That is not a single transaction. That is the picture of an ordinary, repeated life, going out to work, coming back to rest, going out again, coming back again. All of it happening through the same opening, all of it under the same watching care. This was never meant to be one visit you make to collect something you needed and then leave for good. It was written as a home you keep walking through because it keeps being yours. And then the promise lands on the gentlest word in the whole sentence. Pasture. Not a palace. Not a stage. Not some rare experience reserved for the spiritually gifted. Pasture is ordinary grass. The daily, unremarkable feeding a sheep needs to stay alive, given again each day because yesterday's portion does not carry over. He did not promise you one dramatic rescue followed by a long silence. He promised the kind of care that arrives in small, repeated portions. Enough peace for the day in front of you, enough strength for the conversation you have been dreading, enough clarity for the next decision, not the 50 after it. If you have been waiting for something spectacular as proof that you made it through, you have been watching for the wrong evidence. The evidence is quieter than that. It is being fed today. Think about what going out and coming back in actually looks like for you. It looks like leaving this quiet minute and walking into a kitchen that still needs cleaning. It looks like answering the call you have been avoiding. It looks like going back to the same co-workers, the same tired body, the same unresolved list. None of that disqualifies you from the pasture he promised. The pasture was never a separate place you had to travel to reach. It was the rest that travels with you, in and out. Because the door you pass through is not a location. He is a person. And a person goes with you. This also means you do not need a special building, a certain posture, or the right words in the right order to be with him this way. The doorway is a person, not a procedure. Wherever you are when you finally stop performing and simply arrive, that is where the pasture starts. A parked bus. A hallway between two hard conversations. The last few steps before your own front gate. He has never been picky about the ground he meets you on. He only asks that you actually stand on it with him. There is a difference between a house you are allowed to visit and a house you are free to live in. Visitors ask before they open a cabinet. They sit near the exit in case they need to leave quickly. They lower their voice. None of that describes what I built for you. I did not build a house for visitors. I built a home for a son and a daughter who already have every right to open every door inside it. Those who first heard this were shepherds and the families around them, people who understood exactly what it cost a man to lie down across a gap all night, exposed to whatever comes for the flock in the dark. He was not describing a comfortable image from a safe distance. He was describing what he was about to do with his own body, stretched across the one opening between danger and rest, laying his life down of his own accord, so that going in and coming out could both be safe on the other side of it. No one forced that gap shut against him. He chose to lie across it. Then he chose to rise. And the way through him has stood open ever since. This is not a story about a shepherd who got lucky and survived the night. This is a description of a death that was chosen, not stolen, followed by a rising that came exactly as promised. The door did not hold him. The grave could not either. If the door to your deepest fear has ever felt final, remember this. Even the door of death opened again, from the inside, when he walked back through it. Nothing you are carrying right now is heavier than that one was. Look again at the question sitting underneath everything you have read so far. Why has a silence on the other side of an entrance felt like rejection instead of invitation? Here is the answer. Plain enough to hold on to. The door was never a wall you had to argue your way past. The door was a person, already standing there, already lying across the gap on your behalf. Long before you learned to knock politely and wait to be judged worthy of what waited beyond it. This was never a promise that every circumstance will open the way you wanted. It is the deeper promise that the way to me has not closed. You were never a stranger asking a stranger for entry. You were part of the flock this whole time, and the opening keeping you safe has a face, a name, and a history of laying himself down, so the way through would never close on you again. So here is something small you can carry out of today, if you want it. Sometime in the next few hours, find an actual door, a bedroom, a car, a quiet hallway, and close it for 1 minute. Bring no request, bring no list. Just sit there and let the closed door mean the opposite of what fear taught you it meant. Not rejection, but nearness. If a full minute feels like too much right now, give it 10 seconds. This is not a test of stillness or endurance. It is one small act of coming in. You may feel strange doing it at first. Good. You are not performing for anyone in that room. Nothing is required of you there except staying. Let your breathing slow and breathe out once, longer than feels natural. Notice what does not happen. No test arrives. No list of requirements gets read out loud. Only quiet and someone who has been waiting in it with you longer than you knew. There is no need to wait for a crisis to justify walking through this door again. An ordinary day is reason enough. A tired one is reason enough. A day where nothing went wrong and nothing went especially right, where you simply want to sit somewhere quiet for a minute, is reason enough. I have never required a headline event before making room for you. I have only ever required you. You might not feel anything different the first time. That is fine. The 10th time, you may notice your shoulders drop before you even try. Somewhere around the 30th quiet minute, you may catch yourself walking toward a closed door without the old flinch, expecting welcome instead of rejection, because your body finally learned what your mind has been slow to believe. Lift your eyes right now toward wherever light is entering the space you are in. A window, a lamp, even a thin line under a door somewhere in the house. That light did not have to travel very far to reach you. Neither did I. If you have been treating an entrance in your life like something you had to earn the right to open, let that expectation go. Not because letting go changes anything about me, because it changes what you expect to find waiting when you finally knock. You are not a guest who has to be buzzed in through an intercom by someone deciding whether today is convenient. You are family with a key you forgot you were holding the entire time you stood there knocking. Nobody is checking a list at this frame. Nobody ever was. I am not a father too occupied with larger problems in the world to want an unremarkable afternoon with you. Larger problems do not compete with you for my attention the way they compete with someone who only has so many hours in a day. I do not run out of room the way people do. There is no line forming outside this house, and no appointment you are interrupting by walking through it uninvited. The version of me you inherited said the important guest goes first, and the ordinary one waits at the edge of the group. The real shape of things runs the other way. I go looking for the one standing quietly at the edge, assuming their turn will never come, and I open the frame from my side before they finish deciding whether to knock. This was never a lesson about performing stillness correctly. It is an invitation to stop treating closeness with me like a transaction you complete and then leave. Closeness was never metered. It was never rationed, according to how well you have been behaving lately. It has only ever been offered, freely, every time you finally come in. You have spent a long time treating silence as an answer. It was never an answer. It was a gap standing open, waiting for you to notice it was never fully closed. waiting for you to walk in and stop checking the hinges for signs it might swing shut on you. Here is the sentence worth keeping, plain enough to carry into whatever room you walk into next. The distance you kept measuring was never the real thing between us. I have been closer than the door this whole time, wanting this minute with you long before you thought to want one with me. Say it back, if it helps, in your own words, in your own room, with no one else listening. You do not have to use my sentence. Use yours. One true line is enough. You do not need a bigger reason to come in. You do not need a longer list, a heavier problem, or a more polished version of yourself standing at the frame. The one holding this doorway has a face, and that face has never once turned away from the sound of your hand on the wood. Go in, go out. Find rest in both directions. What has been keeping you was never a wall to begin with. It was him, the whole time, lying across the gap so you would always have somewhere safe to walk through. The gap is covered. The shepherd is in place. Nothing needs defending. The way in has a face. That face has never once looked away. I was never far. I am near. And I have been asking for a minute alone with you long before you thought to ask for one with me. Amen. Before you go, I left something short in the pinned comment. A few lines written for the next time a door in your life feels heavier than it should. If a particular face came to mind while you were reading this, send it their way. It may have been meant for them as much as it was meant for you.